Got a Sam's Cafe pizza order up.
You know the best part about this spicy Italian sausage? I voted for this topping. Yeah, just another perk of being a member. Come join us. Sam's Club.
So get this. Americans are done pretending they're fine. Laid-off workers are grieving in public on mountainsides together. The taboos we built around needing help, around job loss, money, the hard moments are cracking. And underneath it all is a piece of data that flips everything we thought we knew about asking. If your brand still treats your customer like someone who has it all together, you're talking to a mask, and the mask is coming off.
So get this, John, there's a hiking group in the Bay Area called UnPTO, as in unpaid time off.
Unpaid time off. Okay, that's a little bleak.
Well, that's the joke. So it's a group for laid-off tech workers. The founder, Basim Istanbuli, got cut from Google in January 2025, and he told the local news, "It's really just kind of blindsided me." And instead of doing what we're all trying to do, update LinkedIn, post open to work banner, and say you're exploring opportunities, he actually started a hiking group for people in the same hole.
Oh, that's great. How big did it get?
It started with 3 people in December. By the spring, roughly 80 hikers were summiting Montera Mountain together every weekend, hiking their grief uphill.
Oh, and the backdrop is brutal, right? Roughly 92,000 tech layoffs worldwide this year, Libby. And did you know that the Bay Area companies alone cut nearly 20,000 workers since last July? And here's the thing about job loss, though. You know, it's one of the most isolating griefs we have. We hide it, we feel shame about it, and we mourn it in disguise.
And this group ripped the disguise right off. Not a Slack channel, but a literal walk uphill with other people who get it.
But here's the part that actually got us. The people who started those hikes, the ones doing the organizing, the checking in, the carrying,
they came away feeling better than anyone.
Better than the people they were helping. And when we took that into the data, it wasn't a fluke, it's the whole story. We've got a name for it. We're calling it the helper's high.
Which is a real thing, right, John?
It's a documented thing. Psychologists have a name for the mood lift you get from giving, this idea of the helper's high. And what our Harris poll data shows us is that it's gone national and it's quietly rewriting the rules of asking. Because for generations, this country treated help as a one-way street. Think about it, Libby. There's a giver who's strong. There's a receiver who's weak. Asking was a withdrawal, a debt, a mark against your self-reliance.
And that honestly isn't coming from nowhere, John. Despite a robust economy on paper, over half of Americans say it's not working for them. 65% believe unemployment is rising. 68% believe inflation is rising. And on top of that, there is a colder realization going on. Americans now operate as if there's no safety net at all.
So the pretending got too expensive.
Yeah, we've been performing fineness as a luxury, and people really can't afford it anymore.
Right. And watch what happens to trust when the net disappears. In our Harris poll data, institutional trust is in a free fall while local trust rises. When you go deeper, small businesses now carry a 40% trust advantage over big ones. People are microdosing their belief systems, shrinking the radius of trust down to who they can actually see. And that's the barber, the neighbor, or the hiking group.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, John, is we found that hope does the exact same thing. So our new Hope Imperative study with the St. Jude's Children's Hospital found that hope in America has a proximity problem. For example, 68% of Americans feel hopeful about their own future and their friends and family, but you drop to the community and it's 52%. And when you get to society overall,
let me guess, it falls off a cliff.
Yeah, 40%. So we're not a country that lost hope. We pulled it in close to arm's length where it still works.
And Libby, here's the stat that changes everything.
This is my favorite one. 91% of Americans say helping others, even in small ways, is one of the most powerful ways they build their own hope. 91%.
91. Sit with that because it changes the physics of asking, right? If helping is what makes people feel hopeful, then the person asking isn't taking something. They're actually handing someone a gift.
The ask is the gift.
The ask is the gift. The asker gets the help, sure, but the helper gets the hope. Both walk away richer than when they came in.
Which means that every unasked favor, every layoff hidden, every struggle smiled through is hope left on the table for both people.
But Libby, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if asking is a gift and 91% of people know helping makes them feel good, then we should be a nation of askers, but we're not.
No, we're terrible at it.
We're awful at it, and we've built the single most reliable hope generator known to humans and then constructed an entire culture around refusing to use it. We will white knuckle a layoff for months before we will text a friend. We'll perform exploring opportunities to 100 LinkedIn connections rather than say I'm scared to one of them.
Because the shame is older than the data. We are raised to believe the ask is a confession of failure.
Exactly. So we hoard the gift. We sit on the one thing that would help us and the person we'd ask because admitting we need it feels like losing. And that's the tragedy underneath all of this. Not that the hope is gone. It's that it's sitting right there and we're too proud to pass it around.
And that's exactly why people who break the pattern feel like a revelation. They're not doing something soft. They're actually doing the hardest and the smartest thing in culture right now.
David, having insurance isn't the same thing as having State Farm.
Tell me about it, Gail. It's like wanting to build a podcast called Brands in the Conversation and ending up doing a podcast about bland conversations.
Really? Bland conversations?
Yeah. Today we're talking to Mr. Doesn't Matter about a subject that is close to his heart, why what he says doesn't matter.
You wouldn't settle for just any podcast, so don't settle for any insurance. Get the real deal.
Hey, we didn't settle for just any insurance company as a founding partner for Bubbler Media.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Did you know with the Sam's Club app, you're technically in the club no matter where you are? Like, this is a club. This is also a club. And this is a club. My bad. Come join us. Sam's Club.
Now, once you see the helpers high, you see the taboos falling one by one.
Yeah, so let's start with the rituals. The New York Times reported on Americans inventing ceremonies for the moments we used to face alone. Think honor walks where hospital staff line the hallway to honor an organ donor's final journey, or mastectomy circles where women facing surgery get surrounded instead of isolated. There's now grieving and weaving circles for those in mourning.
All the things we used to white knuckle in private.
Now they're ceremonies. We're designing witnesses back to our hardest moments.
And notice the direction of travel. Every one of those used to be endured alone. Now we're giving the people around us a chance to show up, which per the data from St. Jude, and I love St. Jude, is a gift to them too.
Yeah, and it's not just the big moments, John. It's Tuesday night. The Financial Times covered admin nights, where young people gather in living rooms just to do the boring stuff, pay the bills, file the taxes, dispute parking tickets together, but doing it together.
They're doing their taxes as a party?
You know, money is the great last American taboo, and now it's the reason for a get-together. And when the safety net actually froze, this went national. Grocery buddies, strangers pairing up to cover each other's food bills when SNAP benefits stopped during the shutdown. part of an ecosystem of at least 800 mutual aid networks nationwide.
One person had to ask, one person got to help.
But they both got to walk away with more hope.
And Libby, here's the proof it works at scale as it has for 60 years. St. Jude. They built the original architecture where asking for help is the entire design. No family ever sees a bill, not for treatment, travel, housing, food. The ask is pre-answered.
And people feel it. 93% of Americans associate St. Jude with hope, the strongest hope association of any organization we measured.
Yeah, 60 years ago, they figured out what the rest of the country is now just catching up to.
That a place where asking is safe beats a culture where everyone pretends.
And this is bigger than a feel-good trend because hopelessness isn't a mood, it's a functional impairment. 73% of Americans say it damages their ability to plan. 71% say it wrecks their concentration, while 7 in 10 say it kills their sense of purpose and decision-making.
So planning, focus, and decision-making.
Yeah, Libby, exactly the things that every company, every economy runs on. A workforce performing fineness is a workforce quietly degrading and nobody's tracking it.
Because we measure the economy's output obsessively and never measure its inputs. The GDP gets a quarterly report card and hope gets nothing. This reminds me of when Robert Kennedy said back in 1968 that the GDP measures everything except the things that make life worthwhile.
And the world's finally catching up. Iceland, Finland, Scotland, Wales are building national frameworks that measure well-being, not just output. Because once basic needs are met, the research is consistent. Social cohesion and trust matter more than another point of GDP.
So, John, here's the argument. Consumer confidence tells you how people feel about the economy. Hope tells you how they feel about the future, which is the thing the economy is actually made out of. Hope belongs on the dashboard right next to confidence.
Exactly, because right now the most productive hope machine in the country isn't an institution. Instead, it's people getting honest about what they need and handing each other the gift of helping, ask by ask. And no one upstream is even counting it. What does the helper's high mean for brands? Because if I'm a CMO, one customer just hiked a mountain with 80 strangers because they all got laid off, and another threw a party to do her taxes. Where do I fit?
Yeah, I think there's a big white space in normalizing the ask. Like we've said, we're terrible at asking, but how do you get into a moment where you're not shameful about asking people for help around caregiving and mental health and finances and parenting, just the foundational needs that we have as humans? So brands that destigmatize the ask will have one of the deepest needs in America because your consumer really isn't fine, right? They've just been trained to perform fineness.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's empathy as an ethos and as a strategy and showing your vulnerability. Secondly, I think, Libby, it's important to design witness. People don't only want their problem solved, they want their struggles seen. Your customer data can tell you what they bought, but Libby, it can't tell you what they're carrying. The brands that make room for that second thing earn a loyalty the first thing can't buy.
And third, understand the new trust math. It's local and it's evidence-based. So for local, behave locally, empower the people closest to the customer, and act at human scale, and show the receipts, the evidence-based. 90% of Americans say seeing real impacts increase their hope. Transparency isn't about compliance, it's a hope strategy.
So the question for every brand is this. When your customer finally gets honest about what they need, are you a safe place to say it? Or are you a part of the reason they were pretending?
Here's what the helper's high really means. We spent generations building taboos around need. Don't talk about money, don't talk about the layoff, handle it alone. That's what we called strength.
And the data says that whole framework was a mistake, a measurable mathematical mistake. The ask was never a withdrawal. It was always a gift to the person you asked.
The workers hiking Montera Mountain, the strangers at the checkout line, the friends gathered for the hard days. They're not weak, John.
They're early.
They figured out that asking for help hands someone else the most reliable hope there is. And once a culture leans into that, it doesn't go back to pretending.
So remember, the helper's high. Your customers are done performing that they're fine. They're asking out loud and handing each other hope in the process.
Your dinner party stat, 80 laid-off tech workers hike a mountain together every weekend instead of hiding behind, exploring opportunities. And 91% of Americans say helping someone else is how they build their own hope.
Not because they gave up on strength.
Because they finally figured out what strength actually looks like.
I'm John Gersma.
I'm Libby Rodney. This is So Get This.
So Get This is a Bubbler Media iHeart podcast production. If you're not in the conversation, you're not in the game.
David, having insurance isn't the same thing as having State Farm.
Tell me about it, Gail. It's like wanting to build a podcast called Brands in the Conversation and ending up doing a podcast about bland conversations.
Really, bland conversations.
Yeah. Today we're talking to Mr. Doesn't Matter about a subject that is close to his heart, why what he says doesn't matter.
You wouldn't settle for just any podcast, so don't settle for any insurance. Get the real deal.
Hey, we didn't settle for just any insurance company as a founding partner for Bubbler Media.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.